All right. I'm going to go ahead and get started here, and if anyone else joins, they'll be able to jump in, no problem. All right, so thank you everyone for joining us today. We're going to be working together on developing a construction technology strategy. I'm Jessica Denman. I'm a consulting services manager at Autodesk, currently living in Denver, Colorado. Before joining Autodesk, I actually did come from industry. I have a background education-wise in civil engineering, and I really started my career working in marine transportation infrastructure. So a lot around port facilities, redevelopment of terminals, as well as dredging out some of that infrastructure in front of those terminals. I dabbled a bit as well in rail design, construction support around that capacity, more design build related there. And then I moved over to Autodesk, where I started working in construction technology customer success. So I've done a number of different roles, working with a lot of different types of construction companies on how they can really implement technology into the ways that they work. So today's workshop, we're going to talk a little bit about why you would want to have a technology strategy, what that means for you, for your business, and especially for your career. Since this is Women in Construction, and we're all here together to talk about how we can advance our careers further and really start to get in those leadership positions within the industry. We're going to have some time to break out into groups and actually dive into practicing developing that strategy right here. So, I'll guide you through all of these different steps, but we're initially going to just understand the baseline of where you are today with your current challenges, then start to think about the possibilities of how things could be different, how things might change. And then lastly, we'll start to give you some tools to help you prepare for success, have a plan of attack, and really ensure that you're following up and following through with your plan. So before we begin, let's talk a little bit about a technology strategy in general. Now, I think we all know that technology can certainly advance the business. We've seen this certainly in construction. There's a lot of excellent research that has been done about what technology can do to help create efficiencies within construction, how we can get those productivity gains that we're all looking for within these industries, especially when we're dealing with our very tight margins. We can also see this in parallel industries. We see this happening very closely in the design space, but even as you branch further out into manufacturing, finance, other industries that are seeing these massive improvements with the implementation of technology. We also see it in our everyday lives. We see it, just creating a grocery store list and how that helps us save time in our personal lives. So I think we're at the point where there's no denying that implementing technology into the way that we work can really help us gain that advantage for our business and for our projects to make sure they're performing at the top level, and we can collect that rich data to help us understand if it's not performing where we want it to be, where and how we might be able to improve. Now, there's still a lot of room in construction for us to apply technology in new and interesting and different ways. And what that really means is there's plenty of room for growth for you to lead the charge if you're the one stepping forward, having a point of view, developing that strategy, and seeing it through with your teams. So again, it's all about your career. So having these tools to really create a well-defined strategy is going to allow you to claim credit for that strategic intent that you have. That's certainly going to empower you to make the advancements in the career that you're looking to have. Cultivating an environment for change is going to be an aspect of this that you're going to have to consider as possibly a challenge, but also a way that you can step up as a leader to kind of create that environment, allow change to be more comfortable and everybody to get on board so you can see the benefits in the long run. Obviously, leaders are holding others accountable to that success. So by writing down this plan, understanding who your stakeholders really are and holding them to that plan, or being able to adjust if you kind of need to make those adjustments with learnings as you go. But being able to return to that conversation and hold everybody who is involved accountable. Of course, measurement is any key to success for a great goal. You want to be able to measure what the results look like, both above you and below you as a leader. So understand what it means to the people who are involved doing the day-to-day tasks, but also how does this roll up to the leaders of your business? How are you bringing forward the metrics that really help others make critical decisions? So they're going to drive business forward or create change. And then lastly, establishing sustainable best practices. You can develop any type of strategy, but if it's not going to really get rooted in your culture, have long-term effects, and have the ability for others to dive in and make this an ongoing habit, then it's going to fall short. So kind of creating room to allow that sustainable best practice to continue going forward. All right. So we all understand now that it's great to have a strategy, but the hardest part is really understanding where do you start. So that's what we're going to tackle here today in our session, in our workshop. So with that, we're going to really start by writing it down. And I have Kayla Drake here from Autodesk as well. She's going to drop a PDF in the chat for all of you. So Kayla, if you could grab that and just drop it in and distribute it out to the whole team, that would be excellent. And what we have in this PDF, this is a takeaway that you all can bring back and start to deliver in your business. You have it on hand as, a framework that you can use as you address different challenges within your position. But we're also going to dive into this together right now during our workshop. So I'll walk you through a few of the sections. We'll have the ability to go through and talk about, how we're going to apply these. I'll give you some time to break out into groups, discuss what your thoughts are, and then we'll come back together as a team, talk through what you guys uncovered in your breakout groups, and move on to the next portion of the worksheet. At the end of this, you'll have this worksheet filled out for at least one different strategic focus area moving forward, and you can dive in leveraging this worksheet in other ways after the session. All right, so hopefully that came through chat. Kayla, there we go. I think we have it. The download. Oh, and it showed up on mine. So Kayla, I saw that you have a download link, but I also might be able to drop it in here directly. So hopefully that went to everyone. All right. So the first portion of this worksheet is all about knowing where you stand. So if you're ever going to create any type of strategic plan, you have to understand where you're starting. When we break out into groups, I kind of provided a list here of example focus areas that you could start to dive into, thinking about where technology might help your processes. So if you stop and imagine for a moment just where things feel a little bit clunky, where they might not be streamlined enough, where information gets siloed or stuck in along the way in a process. Think about one of those specific areas and you'll probably want to hone in on that. Some examples that we face regularly in construction are around construction documentation, the RFI process, change orders and those impacts, schedule, safety, labor productivity, quality, and closeout. So those could be some good areas to start as your primary issue. Then what you're going to do in groups of 4 is talk about those current challenges that you face. So in the background section, you'll start just listing out those challenges that you have, providing some details, talking about that as a group. And then you're going to want to define what the current conditions are now. So that's really doing a bit of a current state process mapping, understanding like, what is it? Where is the information flow? What players are involved? Where might we have a gap? Where are there rooms for efficiency? And as you correlate some of these challenges you have with the current state conditions, you're then going to identify some of those challenges and do a bit of a root cause analysis. So the best way to do that are the 5 whys, really digging into like, what is the root behind why that is happening? Because when you ask those 5 whys and you get to that root cause, that's really going to help you define your vision forward. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and break everyone out. Kayla's going to help me into teams of 4. and you're going to have 7 minutes to select your area of focus and start to run through these 3 discussion points. All right, Kayla.
All right, I'm going to put everyone into breakout rooms. So just give it 1 minute as it slowly navigates you into each room. All right.
Okay. On my end, it looks like we have folks joining rooms. Can you tell, Kayla?
Slowly making its way, yeah. And all right, Hannah, can you see that on your side as well? If everyone is able to move into a room?
I can. Looks like they're moving slowly.
Do you have a timer on your end, Kayla, how it works, or should I look at a clock?
I may just, yeah, I just have my timer set. Is there anyone still remaining in the main room that can hear my voice that's not in a breakout room?
This is Caroline Segsworth. I think so, but I'm just following the link from the chat to the outside Zoom meeting. I'll do that.
Okay. And then Jessica, you should have fallen into a room as well, but I think do you see a button for click to join in breakout room?
I do not, but I'm wondering if it's buried in my presentation mode.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there is one that says join breakout room, so I can jump into one.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, Kayla, it's Erica. I am not in a breakout room as of now. I didn't know if that was on purpose.
Not on purpose, but I do wonder if are you in the Zoom, actual Zoom link?
No, I'm on the Wahova site.
Okay, that might be why. Yeah, you have to be in the Zoom link.
All right, I'm in it. I'm gonna go now.
Joanne, if you can hear me, you may also need to click to join a room. Yeah, and I think that's where people may not be getting connected, is if they're coming in from the Wova app, you'll want to come in on the Zoom link provided, and then I'm able to put you in the breakout room. That's okay if we don't get it perfect this first time. This second round, I'll be the expert on it.
Yeah, we'll have 3 opportunities to do this, so no worries. And we'll come back as a group and talk about it as well.
Hannah, do you think we can share the link to the Zoom in the chat for the actual WOVA landing page for the session?
The link
Not
is
sure if
already
that's-
in the chat function, but I've just I've pointed people to it again.
Okay. Okay, we have about 2 minutes left. And Jessica, for you, I did see a question come in on Q&A before the session started that says, I am a project manager at a residential architectural firm in Seattle. We are moving towards using BIMX 3D models as our primary tool to communicate with consultants and contractors. What aspects of that idea present a challenge to contractors?
Mhm.
So if later in the session we want to answer that question or towards the end, I can come back to it.
Yeah, that'll be good. As you were discussing this topic.
All right, in 5 seconds.
All right, I think we have our crew back. So hopefully you guys had an opportunity to dive into some of these challenges. And if we have any brave souls out there to talk about, what you discussed in your breakout teams, that would be excellent. We could take you off mute. You could dive into the chat portion of either Zoom or WOVA and start to answer some of these questions that you see on the screen. Ideally, you'd be letting us know what focus area you specifically were talking about on your team from that provided list, or maybe even something outside of this list. What challenges resonated most with your group as you were discussing this topic? How complex your current processes are. I find that that's an area that we all probably could say we need a little more than 7 minutes to dive into. And then, of course, were you able to get to the root cause of any of your primary challenges by leveraging the 5 whys? So do we have anyone who would like to share what your team was discussing? I don't know if I can see the chat. If not, I can kind of jump in here and talk a little bit to my experiences just to make sure that we have a well-rounded discussion here. So a great example I've seen before with this one primarily could be around quality, right? I think I deal with quality quite a bit with, working in consulting at Autodesk and how technology can help support quality initiatives. So things that really pop up as a big challenge is how to be proactive versus reactive to your quality management program. And how complex that can get, it can certainly get complex. So thinking about, okay, how do we not just get buried in understanding issues and dealing with RFIs, but how do we actually start being more proactive, creating quality checklists, making sure that we're staying one step ahead of what we're doing. And then drilling down, of course, into the root cause of those. A lot of times it boils down to just having the right information at the fingertips. Like people just don't have the information they need when they need it to really stay on top of quality proactively. So finding ways to overcome that challenge. All right, so we are gonna keep working through our worksheet here together as a team. And the next step is really, now that you've identified your challenges, you understand what your current processes are, where some of those gaps are, it's time to stop and reimagine what is possible. So this is the ideation part. This is where you get to bring in your creativity. Think about how things could be done a bit differently. So we call this the blue sky vision here. And that's really setting aside all of those challenges and really thinking about what an optimal world would look like. Then once you have that optimal vision, then you can kind of return back to that reality standpoint and understand that, you know what, getting to that type of future state is going to have its additional challenges, not just the challenges we deal with now, but some new ones that will start to appear. A lot of that is centered around people, process, and of course, technology. So those are the three pillars to really progressing everything forward. You can't really have any initiative without tackling all three of these. But that's also where your challenges are going to come in. You're going to have people who might have, shifting mindset, stuck in their habit. How do you work through change management? You might have specific processes that become a barrier. You might have specific requirements from a client, from a government mandate that you really need to, fit into your vision and how you're going to operate in the future. And of course, you might have some technology constraints. Think about your systems, your workflows, the bandwidth, the capacity, the cost. There's going to be challenges that creep up with applying technology as well. So with that in mind, we're going to return you back to the groups that you were in so you can continue talking on the same thread about the focus area that you've chosen, and you don't need to necessarily flip over to another focus area. You can continue on the same theme. We're going to give you 7 minutes again to start to get creative, but also understand what the future challenges are going to hold. So Kayla, if we could break out again, that would be fantastic.
Great. Stay tuned. You are all going into breakout rooms now. And Jessica, I put you in a breakout room as well. If you want to go ahead and click accept. Yeah.
Perfect. I will join that.
And if you are tuned in right now, just joining us, we have everyone in a breakout room. So feel free to join in through the Zoom link that's been provided, and you will be able to participate.
Got into was the people involved. little bit of what we discussed there. We were talking a lot about reporting actually as the focus area. So really understanding that the blue sky vision that we're trying to tackle here is efficient and transparent reporting for teams. And, we even had this discussion, like, is that really a blue sky vision? And I would say it absolutely is. It's something that is easier said than done. It requires a lot to get to that level of knowledge shared across the team and what it takes. So I think that's a fantastic blue sky vision to have. We dove in a bit to the countermeasures that happen, why this might not succeed. And a big one we got into was the people involved. So people are a huge portion of this process, right? And we talked a bit about stakeholder buy-in and what that means, and how, it's not just about what this means for your business, what it means for your project, but what does it mean to the individual? Talking about things in terms of the roles on your job and understanding what their needs are and how they're going to be impacted by this change and how it could make their lives better. So gaining that buy-in, providing that perspective is certainly a tactic that you might start to use when trying to overcome those challenges that get into place as you dive into your blue sky vision. So if there's anyone else, I will open it up and ask if anybody wants to jump in and talk about what other teams discussed during their breakout, or we can keep moving through. So I'll pause here and see. All right. And it's okay if you don't want to speak up at the moment, but I hopefully you had some.
Hi, Jessica. This is Erica. One of the
Hi,
things
Erica.
we talked about was also, as far as barriers go, was people. That was definitely something that getting people adopted with technology, getting people used to using it, and getting over that fear of doing something different, that seems to be one of the biggest barriers.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes people forget about that very critical piece when they're developing their strategy. So keep in mind the people, who they are, what their motivating factors are, and that's going to help support the success. And that actually dives into the next portion of our workshop. So that's great that you guys were discussing that as well on your part of the breakout. Thanks, Erica. All right. So moving along here. The third step is all about preparation. So now that you understand where you want to go, what challenges you might face along the way, you really need to develop a plan of attack. So this is understanding how you're going to take those countermeasures and specifically address, the barriers that you're going to have to that plan. And then after you have a plan of how you're going to counter all of those countermeasures, then you're going to create a list of, it's actually like a RACI diagram, right? So talking about what objectives you have for implementation, but then understanding all of the people involved. Who is responsible? Who is accountable? Who are you going to need to consult? Because that is very critical as well, understanding others who are impacted, but maybe not completely connected to, being responsible for a certain part of your process. And of course, setting a timeline associated with all of these information. Oh, I skipped informed as well. Also making sure that you're not only communicating to all the people who are, at the center of the change you're going to make, but everybody involved so that they get some insight into the larger picture as well and how that could have a trickle effect down the road towards different parts of your processes. Then once you have all these objectives in mind, putting a due date, we all hear about SMART goals all the time throughout life, throughout our careers, but it really is true. Holding yourselves to a time frame is what's going to allow you to achieve success. So having these different objectives, setting down a target date, and coming back to that, understanding you might have to adjust. It actually was something we talked about in our last breakout, how do you account for the time associated with implementing new changes? Should it be driven by your strategy of technology? Should you put into consideration a project timeline, your milestones that happen there? Maybe some corporate timelines that are associated with funding or how you might need to make decisions based on that. So consider those type of things because that will keep it rooted in something very actionable for you going forward. So with that in mind, we're going to jump back into our breakout sessions one more time to round out this worksheet that we have on this topic you have today. And we'll come back and review one more time as a group what all we discussed. So Kayla, if we could return to those breakouts, that would be great.
All right, everyone's slowly moving into their groups. So stay tuned as you get navigated into your room. Make sure you click accept to join breakout room if you see a notification come up. And if you're just tuning in and you are watching through the Wova app, make sure to click the Zoom link in the chat there so that you can join the Zoom call and participate in the breakout room. Otherwise, there may be about 7 minutes of silence until everyone returns.
And what their perspective is. So we talked quite a bit about that, justification of extra costs and how that correlates to ROI. So maybe if you're going down this path of a new technology implementation, you're going through a testing process, a lighthouse project, something that has a shorter time frame, developing some key KPIs that might get ahead that are indicators for the type of ROI you're going to see on the other end. And actually your technology provider might be able to jump in and help you with that. So if you are assessing, a specific type of technology, they might be able to help you develop those KPIs that they've seen results in the past. So that was a really interesting topic that we had. We also discussed kind of going across the way, like it's not just looking up or looking down. Also, who are your champions that are alongside you, rolling out this plan, developing, how you're rolling out this workflow. And one thing that came up was, a counterpart in this scenario actually changed partway through. So how do you keep your initiatives moving forward if key players are changing, moving on to other roles, different projects, leaving a company, there's a reorg or restructuring happening at the same time as your initiative. A lot of that happens. So how do you keep it moving forward, but also be able to get everybody back on the same page and develop a plan of attack for that? So some really great conversations happened in our group. Anybody else want to step in and share real quick? All right, I'll give you a call here, but it's fine if you don't want to jump in, no pressure. All right.
Feel free to come off mute to participate, or you can use the chat box.
Are we good? All right. That's good. I know we also have a question that came in before the session started, so I will leave some time to tackle that one as well. But to recap real quick, just so, kind of returning to the key takeaways of this session, this workshop that we had, I think having this strategy, having a plan, understanding it and writing it down is really going to empower you to have a well-defined strategy. It's going to help your career advance forward. It's going to help the projects that you have gain more efficiency, see better outputs, higher quality results for your clients. It's only going to help move our industry, our business, and your careers forward. Now, when you dive into that strategy, it's really all about understanding where you are now to get to where you want to go. So if you don't really set the baseline, then any strategy that you have isn't going to be on a solid foundation. So take some time to analyze where you are and your current challenges, your current processes, and you'll start to see some opportunities and some gaps. And that will really help you progress and have something really meaningful for your strategy. Next, set your vision and address any type of challenges you're going to hit head on early and make that part of your plan. have the ability to talk through this, understand like, hey, is it the people who are going to be the biggest challenge? Is it the process, or is it some of our, the keys in the technology that's there? Really dive into that and understand what you're going to be tackling. That way you can create a plan that can really hold the team accountable by understanding who your stakeholders are, and again, setting some timeframes so you can really achieve that success. So we dropped that workshop PDF into the chat earlier, but definitely take the time to download that, because that's certainly a takeaway as well, that you now have a framework you can use to go start to write down your thoughts and start to develop a plan that you can bring back to your project leaders and your senior management. All right, so thank you all for joining the active participation in this virtual workshops that we did. And I will take a moment here as well to address the question that came up before we started today. I think it was an excellent question. And Kayla, remind me if I'm getting this wrong, but I believe it was about the challenges that a design firm trying to implement BIM might have or be creating once it gets over into construction phase, and those challenges it could create for the contractors themselves. Was that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, perfect.
All right, got it. So what I would say is, of course, developing a BIM strategy on the design side is going to have all of its own challenges and its benefits. It's going to have massive benefits. Going to the other side, this is going to relate a lot to the contract type that you have. I'd love to say there's one answer for all scenarios, but there's not. You're going to have to go back to the dynamics and how contract type plays a big role in what that connection between design and construction is going to look like. If it is a very traditional method where you're leveraging BIM, generating 2D documents and passing those 2D documents over, obviously the challenge you're creating for the contractor there is that they don't have the wealth of information that lives within the BIM model. So that's certainly one aspect. I know there's a lot of challenges that then arise. Okay, if you do have your 2D documents of record and you are turning over a model, does that model really have what it needs for the contractor to do things like estimating? Are the properties all there that they really need to manipulate the information that's in the model the way that they need it to go out and estimate their project correctly and make sure it gets built the way they want it to be built? There is technology actually now that enables that a bit more. So you've got to think about the challenges you're creating for the contractor, and there might be a technology strategy you can actually develop to address those head on. How could you recondition a model so a contractor could use it more effectively on their side of the fence? Obviously, when you're coming to something like design build, you're going to have the luxury of doing a lot more collaboration on the spot. So you're going to be able to kind of bounce back and forth and try and leverage that BIM model in different ways. So those are some of the challenges that could be created. But like I said, with every challenge that comes your way, I see it as an opportunity to try and develop a new strategy to advance things forward. All right. And with that, I can open it up to any additional questions we have from the group. To have a little bit of Q&A if you would like. Anyone eager to talk? If not, I'm glad we got that one question early and I was able to address that. I did put my contact information on here. It's jessica.denman@autodesk.com. I believe through the Women in Construction app, we also have ways to get in contact there. But if you want to do it going beyond into the future, my email address is here. I'd be happy to continue any conversations with you or connect you in with any other folks at Autodesk that might be able to help. So with that, I believe we're just right about on time.
Perfect, Jessica. I was